Hey, everybody, welcome back to what I'm calling the Brian Report. Brian,
Oh, man.
welcome back to the podcast. You've clearly won the amount of recurring times on the Matt Report show. I should just have a pod for all of the products that you launch. I should just have a podcast all to yourself and everything that you have going on. Today, we're talking about...
if that's not a sign of failure, I don't know what is.
Repeating failure of the show. Brian Casel is here to talk about what might be another failure, ZipMessage. You can find ZipMessage at zipmessage.com. I'm going to open this up. I think a lot of people know your backstory. If they haven't, they can listen to the half a dozen shows that you and I have already done on this podcast. Why this product? Last time we chatted, you were just getting you were getting that sort of Ruby on Rails, getting your chops down on that, like learning how to build a whole other platform. And suddenly ZipMessage appeared out of nowhere. How, why, when did it come about? Why did you pursue it?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly when our last show here on, I'll call it Matt Report.
Yeah.
Aired. It must have been probably around 2018 or 2019. Mm-hmm. I can't believe it's actually been that long, but you and I have chatted since then. So a little bit of the timeline. Process Kit, which is, I still run and still going. That product, I basically started working on it really full time in January of 2019. I kind of started planning it in 18, but really got full time into it in January 19. Launched that to first paying customers by around June of, I want to say, 2019. And then really focused 100% on that throughout 19 and 20 and into 20. And then at the end of 2020, Process Kit just got to that place where a lot of SaaS get to, where, a couple thousand in MRR. It's really slow to grow. It has some challenges. I tried a bunch of stuff and I'm still trying some stuff, but I decided in around December of 2020 to just take a step back and start to open my mind to, like, maybe I should try another product or two or three. And actually, like back in January, the idea was, let's throw a couple of ideas at the wall and see what sticks. But there was really this one idea called ZipMessage, which I had the idea in midway through 2020, but I shelved it along with all the other shiny object ideas in my long list of them. But I was like, let me just try this. Take a little breather from really pushing on Process Kit. Put the roadmap on Process Kit a little bit on maintenance mode. And I went into ZipMessage, and I really liked the idea. I was attracted to the idea because a number of different things. I mean, first of all, in a lot of ways, it's sort of really every business that I ever get into, I'm trying to course correct from something that I learned in the previous one, right? One of the big challenges with Process Kit has been that it's a really big product, which means it's a really big task to adopt if you're a new customer. Like, it literally takes new customers a good month at least of like everyday work on their part to really
they have to peel the process out, template it out into your system, if you will, and then engage people to use it. And I remember you and I chatting a lot, privately between the two of us, like, wouldn't this be a great idea, or like free templates to like kickstart that inertia?
Yeah,
for things
and we have templates in there, which really did help a lot. In late 2020, added the templates and put them like front and center in the onboarding experience. So actually, since then, we've had more customers self-convert without the heavy customer support load that it did have for a while there. And that continues. Like, it's just super slow, to grow and become a thing. And for those that don't know, like, in the background, I also have audience ops, which I'm not super involved in day to day, but that is the other business that I have that sort of funds all the runway for getting into SaaS. So it gives me a little bit of space and time to be able to explore different ideas, which is really nice. But with ZipMessage, I really liked it because one of the first things that really attracted to me as the business idea is that it's so fast to get value from. Like, again, Process Kit is like, you got to really commit like a good month to really start to get value. Like, you're automating operations in your business. Whereas with ZipMessage, you could sign up and have an asynchronous video call with one other person, and you just got a bit of value from this tool.
Is that something you sort of stumbled upon? I mean, I know countless products, services, and stuff that you've gone through, and I want to kind of break that down of like what your best, most valuable lesson is thus far in your career. But were you like sort of, midway through or 3/4 way through here with Process Kit going, you know what I think I missed? I think it was that. I think it was that quick, easy, instant gratification to a customer. I feel like that's what I'm missing. And that's right. I got this thing called ZipMessage over here that I was thinking about doing. Is that a lesson you learned?
Well, it's never just one thing. There's always, there's really probably like 10 big learnings that I've taken out of Process Kit. And some things that I learned that we did really well. But that was one of them, definitely, is that activation, adoption sort of thing. The most common churn reason that I hear from people is really it's actually more of a challenge of getting new people to adopt it, because once people do get like sign on, the lifetime is really great, and they actually do expand. They add team members and stuff like that. But they basically stop, like the people who churn, they basically stop using it after a few months. Yeah. So obviously there might be some like product market fit issues there, but there is a core customer base that is like power users on it, and they really love it. So it's sort of like a question of like, well, what do I do with that?
Yeah. And this is a reaction to just like it's not even just whatever audio video tools, to do apps, and like all these other spaces. This is just everything, every product in the world competing with that. It needs to be instant, or the customer, they're out. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of tool you're launching here.
I mean, the thing that I saw with ZipMessage that got me really excited, number one, was that like speed to getting value from the tool. Number two is it's heading into a space of software tools that is not brand new. So like Loom is probably the most common, call it, competitor, and which lots of people use. I use Loom as well. And so this idea of like video recording, video messaging tools, the thing that I saw with Loom, and this was actually the way the idea for ZipMessage came about, was that I would commonly be on a customer support call for Process Kit and ask the customer, hey, I need to see what you're seeing. Can you record your screen for me? Can you go use a tool like Loom or record your screen and send me a Dropbox link or whatever you might do? And that's a lot to ask for customers. Like, maybe they do use Loom, maybe they don't, but it's just friction there, right? So I wanted to I started thinking like, man, there's got to be an easy way for me to just send somebody a link. They click it, they come to a page, they could start recording their screen. And that was the original idea for ZipMessage, and that's what it is. You can do that. But what it quickly evolved into was, okay, they could it's easy for somebody else to record, but I could record my response right back to them. And now we have this asynchronous conversation on video, or just audio, camera, screenshot, or just text. And now it's literally flowing down the page like a conversation, but we're asynchronous. We don't have to book a live Zoom call. I don't have to ask somebody to get on their calendar or all that. It's just like, here's a link. Let's talk when it's good for both of us. And it just flows right down the page. And that idea of the asynchronous conversation turned out to be the thing that people are starting to really latch on to, because, and that was a little bit to my surprise, and I'm finding all these other use cases. My original use case was like customer support scenarios, but all these other use cases are coming up. Like, I want to use it to take requests for my podcast. I want to use it to collaborate with my team, my freelancers, talk to my customers. I want to use it in a sales situation to have asynchronous video chats with sales prospects, hiring, like getting video responses from applicants and stuff like that. So I'm sort of fielding all these different use cases right now, but they're all interested in. I keep asking people like, why are you interested in ZipMessage? Why don't you just use a Loom, right? And they all come back saying, this is the one that has that conversation, like a threaded conversation view. And so we're really sort of leaning into that. And I'm pretty excited about it. I've been having conversations with customers, like using ZipMessage. and it's a really cool tool. Totally. It's a really cool way to actually communicate,
Yeah. Before we keep drilling into the product and how you're approaching it, would you say that, over the last few years, what has been the most valuable piece of education to excel your career? I'm going to bet that it's learning how to, you've always known how to develop, but I feel like this progression into learning Ruby on Rails and becoming a better developer has been something that has really skyrocketed your ability to launch and iterate and feel more confident in products. Is that true?
100%. Yes. I love it. And it has skyrocketed my enjoyment of what I do with products. It has really, really removed such a huge barrier. Because I have been a front end dev my whole career. I've been a designer. I am a designer. And when I say designer, as any designer knows, that doesn't mean picking colors and picking typography. Like, that's just one detail of it. What you're really doing is, as a designer, you're solving a problem. And so when you're designing for the web, especially if you're designing software, you're really designing the whole system, from the way that it works in the database to the way that the user interacts on the screen. And for years, probably one of your Matt reports, we talked about like ops calendar when I was doing that. And
that was 2017.
Yeah. Back then I couldn't develop backend, so I had to hire out help with that. Right now I also have a developer that I work with, and we can work really fast together. Another big benefit of being a developer myself is I can collaborate on such a deeper, more productive level with him. He's in India, and we are hashing out every single feature together. Not to mention working, like 2 tracks. Like we're able to ship twice as many features in a week because it's both me and him working on it.
Yeah.
So
I'd say also one of your superpowers is kind of funny, not to get sidetracked on products. I'm looking at our 2017 episode on the Matt Report, building ops calendar, and one of the under the challenges bullet point section, here's a bullet point. It says, there's a side plugin business that is also being created from custom tools by audience ops, which I think was like your opt-in forms on WordPress.
Yeah, the content upgrades.
Yeah, it just goes to show like all of these different things that you would fragment and spider out to.
Yeah, that one was funny because we had that was a pair of WordPress plugins, and we some customers bought it, but we mainly used it for clients and audience ops. And then I think it was around 2018, I ended up selling those to Liquid Web, which came about really randomly, but it was nice to sort of just let those go.
I'd say also one of your superpowers, which might often get overlooked, is your ability, and this is just something that I've admired, your ability to do, and I just don't know if I have the patience like you to do it, but it's hiring people. It's being able to find and hire and train people up to help you develop these products. I think that's a skill set that is very difficult to hone over time. I've seen plenty of blog posts that are like, here's all you have to do, make a couple test projects and go through 12 of them and hire that one person. It's like, it never works for me, but it works for you.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you say that, because I think I've done okay with hiring over the years in certain types of hiring. But now I'm in a different place with trying to build a small team to grow this SaaS company that I'm working on now, right? So and that I'm finding a lot more challenging to hire for. I'm still figuring it out. It's literally on my plate this week, like a problem that I haven't figured out yet. So what I've always felt pretty comfortable with is, okay, I've got a service I've figured out the process for delivering the service. I've documented the process. I've set up the systems. Now I need to hire people to plug into the process and carry out specific roles. That's what audience ops is. We've got a team of about 25 people, writers, copy editors, managers, assistants, and they just kind of carry out their tasks. And that has grown to where we have like a higher level manager. We've got a salesperson. We've got, different stuff. So, that I think I'm an okay manager, maybe not a great manager. I don't know that I'm great at like building a strong team culture. Something I always want to try to get better at, but my team there has been with me for many of them 4, 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
And that's gone pretty good. And developers, I've had generally pretty good success with. Sometimes it's initially hard to find the right person who has the right skill set, but being technical now makes it so much easier. And frankly, I haven't done it that much because I've just been working with this one developer who's been awesome.
One of the challenges for me when I'm looking to work with a developer, especially in the past, is I feel like I should be finding somebody who just cares as much about the product and like the vision and the future as I do about like whatever product it was or is that I was working on. That was a lesson that I learned really early. Like, man, you got to just pump the brakes on that. A lot of people just want the task, want to get it done and do a good job, but they're not going to care about the long-term vision of where you want to go. Is that something that you wrestle with at all?
Well, with developers, I mean, we were just talking about how I'm still relatively new to learning how to build in Ruby on Rails. Like back-end development, I am still a newbie. I could technically build an app, but the code will be ugly. I don't have all the experience that an experienced dev has. So it's actually nice to be able to work with somebody who's really strong, career experienced back-end developer. Like I defer to him to. Like we actually have a lot of issues in our GitHub where I built and finished a feature. It's all done. It's working, tested, good to go. And then I just pass it over to him. Just go clean up whatever I just built here. Fix all the mistakes, and keep it working the same, basically. Yeah. And then I get to learn from what he did, and so that's been really good. So mostly I'm just sort of deferring on the technical side to him, but I'm directing him and managing like what we're going to work on, how the feature is going to design, how it's going to function, all that kind of stuff.
And one of the challenging roles, I think we can talk about it because I saw you tweet about it, is trying to find somebody to be like that content creator, video, podcast, blogging, tutorials, front facing. It's quite a unicorn if I pat myself on the back because it's something that I do for Craig at Casel. It's been a challenging, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a challenging proposition for you. How's that going?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to talk about that because it's something that I'm looking for right now. Just generally hiring marketers in general, right? Most marketers are really good at what they do. But I think these days when it comes to marketing, excuse me, that's why I shouldn't drink coffee while I'm on a podcast. Like most marketers who call themselves either a freelance marketer or a full-time marketer. Hold on. All right. Most marketers are good at what they technically at what they do, whether it's writing or using analytics or Ahrefs, SEO research, outreach, whatever type of marketing they do. It's usually a mix of things. They're technically good at that, but right now in 2021, B2B SaaS is just really, really difficult from a marketing standpoint. And I'm mainly talking about like new entry SaaS products, very early stage SaaS products like mine, right? It's just the competition is just insane. It's one thing to market and sell a service, because you just need a handful of good customers to make it a really viable business. But for a SaaS product to break through, you like really no matter how you price it, even if you're pricing at several hundred a customer, even up to like 1,000 or two per customer per month, like you still need a lot of customers and a lot of traffic and visibility to make it work. And it just, and there's so many other things that go into building a SaaS product, like technically the product and all that. So with collaborating with a marketer, what I'm finding, I had a tweet about this today or this week, is I think it's a lot more about brand than people like to admit. And we think about branding like it's logo design or it's our colors or something like that. Or you think about brand like it's Budweiser in Citi Field or something like that. But for SaaS, it's really like, what are you known for on the internet, even within circles? And I mean, like podcasting is a big part of that. Like, I think to this day, historically across all my products, the number one source of new customers is hearing me on podcasts, either my own or somebody else's, right? Like by far. And that's one of the hardest things to even track and measure. But I know every time I ask someone, 90% of the time it's like, I heard you on a podcast or I follow your podcast. And so I that's not just podcasting specifically, but I just think that when you're talking about brand, like we need to be creating really interesting, unique things for the world, for our people, that are different, that are worth talking about, that are worth sharing. And that stuff has to be more creative today than ever. Like, like you can't just put out the same stuff that everybody else is putting out. Like you have to have new ideas. You have to be you have to be out there, like making arguments for something. You got to be out there, advancing a brand new idea, and in a way that's like visually appealing, that's fast to get it. Like usually that involves video and things like that. And so what I'm looking for,
and it can't be really just one thing. It can't be one thing anymore, right? Like it has to be the podcast. It has to be like at minimum, it's podcast, YouTube channel, newsletter, blog. Blog sort of fell to fourth place recently, but still, like you need to do it. And it's almost like one of those thankless, like those thankless jobs or whatever. Like you have to keep producing it. Even if people aren't tuning in, this is the funny thing with audiences and content that I've learned over the last few years is you better keep doing it. Even if they're not tuning in, they want to know that you're still doing it, because if you stop that podcast, they're going to judge you and they're going to say like, you didn't do it. Like, even if they're not listening, they know, I know Brian's doing a podcast. That's all I need to say that he's doing it and he's putting in the effort.
It's so funny. It's true what you're saying, because like I said, like podcasts are like impossible to track. Like you could sort of see how many listeners you're getting, but you don't know how many of those listeners are turning into customers or leads or whatever it might be. Or listeners referring other customers. Like that's actually usually how it happens, right? You can't really track that. But I know for a fact, I had this other podcast. I haven't done it in a while. It was called Productize Podcast. It was basically an interview show that I've had. It was off and on from like 2017 into 2018 and a little bit of 19, I think. And I would go off and on with it. I would do like 6-8 months of it, and then I'd do a hiatus, and then another 6 or 8 months. And then it's weird, but I look at the sales graph on like my Productize course and my other stuff, and sales go up when I'm podcasting, and sales sort of trend down when I'm not podcasting. Like, I don't know, like the trend is definitely there though,
Yeah. I want to put on Jordan Gull's hat for a second here. He would tell you, Brian, why don't you just do the podcast, the YouTube, the content for ZipMessage and hire out the development and the management of like the product itself. So why not do that?
That's a good, it's funny. I sort of joke about this lately. Like the more that I get into product development and code, it's like the worse I am at marketing and the less interested I am in doing marketing work and content stuff. So that's basically it. It's not that I have no interest in it. Like I do enjoy hopping on the mics and getting on podcasts, but I don't enjoy the grind of especially video. I don't mind going on camera once in a while, but that's one thing, is the actual production work. I'm not that interested in doing. I don't think I'm very good at it. I could hack through something, but I'm not a professional video person. I'm also very much not interested in being a personal brand. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, and I think to a certain extent everybody is a personal brand, whether you like it or want to be or not. And I'm not denying that, but the company that I'm trying to build right now, a small software company, I don't want it to be the Brian Casel show. I want it to be, we make awesome products and we put really cool stuff out into the world,
Yeah.
I mean, that will involve people, like, my team, myself, on camera, on microphone, but it should be more about the product and the ideas or the questions we're asking to the world than just me all the time.
Yeah, I feel, again, just kind of resonating with what we're doing at Castos, and although Craig might not openly say it, like, I think part of the strategy behind it was that is because he hosted the audience podcast, which is from Castos, and now I largely do that along with a YouTube channel and all this stuff, and it allows that separation for him to just show up on podcasts and show up on the audience podcast. We just recorded one before you and I started, jokingly, like, he only shows up when he buys something, right? So we're going through this acquisition of Podient, another podcast hosting company, and when we acquired 3 Clips, he came on the show, and we talked about, like, broad visions and where the company's going. But then the day-to-day is me, and on the YouTube channel, I'm largely showing off the products and where we're going with the product, and it allows that separation. So I mean, I totally get it. A difficult position to hire for.
And the other thing is, I really, really love working on product. Like that is me. That is what I do. People might see stuff that I do on, like, Productize services and other stuff that hangs around on the internet for many years. But honestly, what I am is I design software products, and that's what I love to talk to customers and take customer feedback and plan and build features. That's what I like to do, and that takes so much time and energy that there's no way I could do the production, the content grind, and do that.
Let's spearhead right back into ZipMessage, and I want to talk about some of the challenges there and some of these wins that you've had. Let's start specifically with the way you onboarded ZipMessage. I think I heard you talk about this on your podcast with Jordan. Like, the way that you've done surveys. This isn't the first time you've done this, right? Like, you had this onboarding. It's not just, hey, I take an email, off they go, and they're in the system, and then you'll reach out to them when it's ready. But you ask systematic questions here, like, who are you? And you had one specific question. Is it what are you going to do with the product right when you get access to it? It was a question like that. Like, tell me exactly what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, let's see. Let me pull up one of them today. See what I actually had on there. So basically the way that it works is today you come to the homepage, and I haven't yet opened it up for anybody to sign up for ZipMessage. You have to sign up for the early access list first. You put in your email. Now you're on the email list, and then on the back end of that, it takes you to this survey page. And the questions on the survey are, first, how did you hear about ZipMessage? And vast majority of them say your podcast. What does your business do? What's your role or job title? I like that to understand, like, what do they call themselves, right? Are they a founder? Are they a marketer? Are they whoever, a manager, right? And then in which situations do you prefer to, this is, specific to ZipMessage, but which situations do you prefer to communicate asynchronously, and with who? So I want to start to hear how, like, and what I'm asking there is, how do you currently communicate asynchronously, right? Not like, would you do this or that in the future, but like, how are you currently doing it, or have done it in the past? I get a mix of different use cases there. And then which tools, if any, do you currently use for recording, sharing, receiving video messages? Again, I'm trying to understand their current or past behavior, not like, would you use this tool in the future? And then the last one here is, how do you think ZipMessage might help you, and be specific? And so that's where I start to try to get at, like, you just told me that you're using these other tools. You just told me that you do asynchronous in these other ways. Why are you even looking at ZipMessage right now?
Right.
Like, what is it about it that you hope would be helpful for you, right?
Are you using this information to reinvest into the product, or are you, at least in the early days, saying, you know what, this person, they just might not be really in, they might be kicking tires, right? The old sales term. They might just be kicking tires. Is that what you're trying to do here?
It's mostly just research into the market, because I started this survey and this list before I even really started building it, or as I was building it. And it's still up there today. So really, I'm just trying to understand, like, who are the people who are interested in this thing that I'm building, and what are their commonalities. So I have this survey, comes into my email, but it also feeds into a spreadsheet. I've done some taking all the data in the spreadsheet, trying to, group it, like, okay, this percentage of people are in client services, this percentage are in SaaS, this percentage are Loom users, this percentage are not, or they're using some other tool, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to see where the patterns are, and then that helps me understand. Like, I've already done this, right? Like, the homepage on ZipMessage now, I've gone through probably 3 iterations on the whole site already, just in the last couple of months. And the very first version was just sort of like my gut idea for this new product idea. And after getting feedback from surveys like this, I realized, like, oh, there's a whole lot that was wrong in the way that I wrote and presented the idea. And there's all these other really common things that people latch onto. I was talking about, like, the conversational aspect of it, the threaded conversation. That was not front and center in my first take at it, and that quickly became the thing. So now it's like this big animated thing on the top of the homepage that shows you the conversation.
Yeah. You can get a feel for, if everybody's saying, let's say Loom, we'll use them as an example again, you can bucket and find trends in pricing, in their own marketing, and you can quickly find out if somebody says Loom, like, let's say 6 months from now, and you say, okay, Loom user comes in, they might expect a free plan because Loom has a 5-minute free thing. And you kind of understand from a, whatever, churn and conversion ratio, you can say, okay, 100 people signed up looking for Loom. I know that these people are going to be the hardest ones to sell because they might be expecting free, and we don't have free here. So we can kind of gauge our, the interest in the use case.
At this stage right now, we're still early on. We're recording this when I'm only about 5 months into ZipMessage. So at this stage, it's really more about what should I prioritize, and what should I not prioritize, in terms of which things to build, who should we be speaking to on the marketing site. That's what I'm looking for in the surveys. And then I do read all the surveys, and then I invite a lot of them to calls. And the surveys, reading what they wrote is a way for me to understand, like, I have a few hundred of these people. I can't talk to all of them. I shouldn't talk to all of them. I need to know who are the best people from this group that I should be talking to, and reading their responses helps me kind of narrow that down.
This looks like and I don't mean any offense by this of your past products, but this seems like the most simplistic yet powerful tool that you've built, right? Like, I feel like from what I've seen you launch, interface wise, branding wise, like, I get it. It makes total sense. I understand the use case. The user interface, like I was just saying, is super easy to understand. You know what you're going to press in order to get a result. This looks like the most lightweight yet most impactful product you've ever built in a short amount of time. Is that a fair assessment?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, really, that's what I'm going for with this. To be honest, I didn't know. Again, it's super new. I didn't know that it, like right now, you can call it a pretty horizontal product. I'm already seeing like many different use cases and different types of customers who are interested in using it. And once I saw that sort of horizontal nature start to reveal itself, that got me a little bit worried about ZipMessage. You might have heard on the podcast with Jordan, like I was starting to say, like, how can I niche this down? How can I talk to this niche or that niche? And then really make ZipMessage the tool for whatever, coaches or teachers or podcasters or whatever it might be. I explored that a little bit, but at the end, but I've come around since then to say, like, for right now, it just is horizontal. And we're going to see where this goes. Like it has, a bunch of first customers right now. We'll see how this evolves over the rest of the year. And then if there is one or two groups that emerge of like, these are the best customers, then maybe we'll double down on that, but maybe not. Maybe it'll just be horizontal, and then we'll have like niche use case pages on the site and stuff like that. But sort of still exploring, and there's so much. It's a very simple product in terms of it basically does one thing really well, this asynchronous conversation. But within that, there are so many little details. We're not even close to having built everything that we need to be building. So it's like,
yeah, I don't know of many products, and this is the challenge, right? This is going to be the challenge for you, moving forward. I don't know of many, paid for products. In other words, a customer has to go and pay for it, that really can survive the simplicity of where the product, starts off. I mean, look at Loom as an example. My God, there's like 50 billion things that it does now. I'm just like, I don't need all this. And what happens is the customer, like myself, goes, I don't need all of these things, popping out at me, telling me what I should be doing, like inviting collaborate. Like, I don't need all that stuff. Where is the product that let me just record that video and quickly share it? I guess the challenge is once you start getting to a certain user amount of users, capacity, network capacity, storage capacity. I don't know what the costs are internally, but then it's like, how do we monetize this play?
Yeah.
Simple Note is the only product I know that has survived like being simple as a product, but they're also not charging for it, and it's owned by Automatic, so there's $1 billion behind it. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like,
a lot of those task managers are just you gotta have huge pockets to make that work. Same thing with Loom. I mean, they have a very generous free plan, and it is difficult for someone like me to compete with them. Just be perfectly honest. And I thought about doing free, not close to the idea someday, but right now we're not doing a free plan. And we are differentiating in certain key ways that a certain set of customers seem to be perfectly fine with, and I'm still experimenting with different pricing, but but it has paying customers already, and it's growing. So we'll see. What was I going to say? The simplicity thing is hard, because, and I think this goes back to like choosing to get into ZipMessage coming from Process Kit, right? Because one of the challenges with Process Kit was like it started getting very first customers, like just a very small handful of first paying customers within like 6-7 months or so after breaking ground on the code. Really call it like 8 or 9 months if you include the early research. But it wasn't until well over a year of building features before Process Kit got actually like really useful for people. Because that product is so much more complex that like you can't just have a glorified to-do list as a process tool. There's no reason to pay for that when you could just use any other to-do list. You have to have the automations, the conditional logic, the reason why people want to use like smart SOPs, which is what Process Kit does. We need a really, really robust Zapier integration and all this different kind of stuff. It took well over a year to get there. And then even into the second year, there were a lot of important features that added value, and then that's where the customer base, likes to. It has that like automations. People who are super into automating everything in their business, they love Process Kit, but like took a good year and a half to really have a product to give them. Whereas like ZipMessage, I was able to build, I guess, call it an MVP within a couple of months. And now we're just trying to refine and build that out.
Yeah, and you can see the excitement. Like I can obviously, if you're watching the video, you see the excitement. But if like I can hear the excitement when you talk about it in your other podcasts, and when I see you tweet about it, I can always tell the kind of good mood you're in when I see your Twitter, when I see your tweets coming out. But even go down to like the branding. And like your approach to this, like the branding.
That's the stuff that I put out publicly. You don't see me like throwing chairs in here the rest of the day, right?
But it comes across, and like your approach to this product, I can tell that you're becoming much more, mature. From when I first met you, which I probably say every time I interview you at this point, is like when I first met you on stage at WordCamp Providence talking about Restaurant Engine.
Oh yeah,
which was your original foray into SaaS. This one is definitely something that looks like you're really passionate about. Like this will be the one that the history books really write a big chapter on you about. Video seems like a.
Well, it's funny to hear you describe that. I have heard similar things from people like listening to the podcast and stuff. And I appreciate that really. And I a lot of it I do feel, but also at this stage of trying many different products over the years, the maturity thing, I think leads to what I actually think is pretty healthy skepticism of everything. I think you do need to go into a new product with a lot of skepticism. I'm still skeptical. Like I'm still trying to understand that question. Like what, like people who are interested in ZipMessage, like convince me, like, what are you really interested in this product? Like, why are you interested in it? I need to know that. And I need to prove that and continuously, it's just a process of like building confidence in like, okay, I think there's something here. Okay. Now I'm going to really double down investments here and that sort of stuff,
I think in a space, I mean, and final question, thoughts around this. I'd imagine that the pandemic, COVID, audio, video, very hot spaces now that everyone is forced to work from home. I mean, I think the video space obviously is going to be interesting. Audio is going to be interesting, but also probably quite challenging was, building Process Kit out is probably just a lot of thought, a lot of logic. You probably don't need a lot of CPU and infrastructure around this stuff. Video, I'd imagine, maybe a little bit more, right? And storage, bandwidth, conversion, all this stuff.
It definitely is more complex. I do have a great developer working with me, and I have learned a ton about handling video on the web in the last couple of months. It's definitely a challenge for sure. There are some aspects of it that were a little bit easier than I expected. And when I did some early technical research on it, it was part of the reason why I decided to go into it and not be completely scared off because it's video. I started researching it a bit. I was like, we can actually do this sort of thing in browsers these days, which wasn't exactly possible even like 1 or 2, 3 years ago. So that's kind of cool, but there's definitely, there are definitely costs in terms of bandwidth and processing of videos and storage and playback. And there are, just reliability issues of making sure that every time you hit record, no matter which browser you're in, it works. We're constantly working with users to smooth that out. And making, you might think that everybody is using Google Chrome. It is.
God, I hope not.
No, I mean, I'm literally seeing from the user base, the small user base here with ZipMessage, that it's a good mix of Chrome, Safari, Firefox, iOS, Android. Like it's a mix, and we got to make them work. So that's a challenge.
Fantastic stuff, Brian Casel. ZipMessage.com, async video conversations with customers and colleagues. I love the fact that you have the little arrow that points to what's this, like async, to help define asynchronous. Because I tell you that if I told my dad, hey, check out this asynchronous video conversation tool, he might be like, what the hell is, I mean, he's not incompetent, but he might be like, what do you mean asynchronous? But screen sharing, video sharing, he would get it. But I like how you define it there so that people...
and that came out of the feedback because the very first version of the homepage, I did use the word asynchronous, maybe not in the H1, but somewhere on there. And I got a lot of feedback saying like, I don't really know what, like literally people would ask me like, what does asynchronous mean? And then other people would be like, I sort of know what it means, but I think most people don't know what that means. And then I backed off of it for a while, like, oh, it's just for video conversations or video messaging, something like that. And I just didn't use the word asynchronous. But then it occurred to me that like, no, like we should own the term async, because that is growing in popularity. Like people are starting to use it more often. So I want ZipMessage to be known for async conversations, but we have a little definition there for people who are brand new to it, Yeah.
ZipMessage.com, request an invite at ZipMessage.com. Brian, thanks for hanging out and talking to us today on your podcast. It's your podcast at this point. Go to ZipMessage.com, request an invite, and maybe we'll see Brian again. Hopefully not. We don't see you in another 6 months talking about another product.
The goal is to never be on Matt Report again.
Yeah. It's amazing stuff. Everybody else, mattreport.com, mattreport.com/subscribe to join the mailing list. We'll see you in the next episode.